enterprise. Now, usually when I'm talking to you in a video, I'm talking about some kind of technology, but everything can't always be tech and engineering and STEM, right? So today, in honor of National Poetry Month, I am so delighted to introduce a special guest. This is Melissa Goodrum. She's a New York City, Brooklyn-based poet, and I have had the pleasure of attending several readings of her poetry. Let me tell you, she's incredible. And we have Melissa here in honor, as I said, of National Poetry Month. And we just want to kind of get your thoughts on being creative and, today's economic climate and what that entails. And I think what I've always wanted to ask you, though, is how did you start with poetry? Like, how did you know, what, I want to be a poet? Is it one of those things that comes naturally, or how did you get into it?
My family history is a really big part of who I am and what I do and why I love words and why I love music. So I'm related to Billie Holiday. My grandfather is Charlie Dixon, the banjo player who played with Henderson. So I grew up around music and poetry. Wow. My mother and father are always dancing to records around the house. And at night, instead of reading me Mother Goose, they read me poetry.
Oh, wow.
So literature and Lord of the Rings, but literature played a large part in forming who I am. And instead of running off and just running, or which is something I love, but instead of those sort of physical activities, writing became a place I could go, an actual place where I could deal with everything that happened during the day, whether it was an emotional ordeal or some excitement or some hope or some dream. It just became something that was a part of me, part of my everyday.
Wow.
I think I wrote my first book when I was 6 and handed it to Mom.
Wow.
So it's always been there.
Right, so it's kind of like a heritage thing. It's just part of your growing up and like your DNA.
Yeah.
So, being a poet, it sounds like such a wonderful occupation, wonderful thing to do. But of course, the thing with being creative and how to do that and make that into something lucrative, daily life comes in. How do you juggle being a creative and also paying the bills?
Well, that is the trick.
Right?
That is what everybody asks, because first of all, poets don't make money. And truly and honestly, there isn't a poet who has lived who has made money off of writing alone enough to put bread on the table. Toni Morrison, she charged $1,000 per minute for a speech. Maya Angelou. These are names, and their name alone is what sold them. Mm-hmm. And so these are the successful poets. Mm-hmm. Of course, these are great women and great writers, right, and full of heart and powerful words that I grew up with. Right. Yet there is no such thing as a poet who lives off of it. Right. So we all teach, for the most part. 80% of the poets that I know are teachers of some kind, whether it be at night to an adult education class, as some famous poets are doing right now, and you would be surprised. This is what they do. Or in my case, I love high school teaching. I teach at Brooklyn Technical High School, and it's an adventure. Every 41 minutes is an adventure. And why not? Why not share my love of words and how I see the world with young minds, especially young minds who have never shown an interest in literature in their lives.
That's another
tech and STEM school, so these kids.
Right.
If I can reach into their League of Legends world and make them see how that fantasy can come alive just through words alone, right, or how important their imagination is, I feel like I've done my job.
Oh, sure.
And so that balance is important to me, to feel like during the day I'm alive. And it took me a long time to arrive there. Wow. It took me a really long time in several different jobs. Accountant, head of, executive head of a publishing company. I worked at H&M.
Wow.
All of these things, I was looking for a way to survive while doing what I consider breathing, which is writing.
Wow. teaching these kids in that who are more geared towards STEM because, and our education editor, Robin White-Good, she's written a lot of this topic that arts education is so important even for kids who are learning STEM. It's really, it just taps into a certain, realm of the mind. It helps you grow and think and, even code better.
Well, there's the key word, you said even.
Right.
How would we have the iPhone if it weren't for the creativity of Steve Jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
He thought outside of the box. He refused to wear shoes.
Right.
He was creative beyond belief. You don't get anywhere in any industry without being able to step outside of expectations and say, this is who I am. So.
Wow. This is a great conversation, and we're going to hear a sample of Melissa's poetry. And Melissa, before we do that, how would you describe your poetry? And I'd like you to speak on the fact that so many of our famous poets of late have been Black women. What do you think women of color bring to the poetry table that makes our words so impactful?
Well, pain.
Wow.
It's the first word that comes to mind. Who are we but the ones who are questioned? We are the women who need to stand up in the face of so much. I guess I would say that social expectations place this one ideal of what is a woman. And that is slowly but surely changing. And I see Kerry Washington on the cover of every magazine, and I jump for joy. But growing up, I didn't understand. And I just feel like we've endured so much. Even just opening up the door throughout history, there have been so many things that have been laid on a Black woman's shoulders. And all of these burdens, all of these things, we struggle on through, and we look for a way to survive, to breathe, as I was saying earlier. And that breath and that strength is important right now, in a time where the world is shaking, and our lines between history and the present are disappearing, and we need to remember what we dream of for the future. And so we are the voices that come through that. We are the voices that stand up. And
do you feel like your own poetry, would you describe it as, giving voice to some of that pain, or how would you describe your writing?
Most definitely. I think that I speak to the strength that is the Black woman, and I speak to the soul, the history of being asked to stand up in the face of so much tragedy, so much disappointment. I think that this world has offered us all so much sorrow at this moment in time, and it's hard to wake up and say, okay, last night we bombed.
Wow.
Last night we bombed, and then I walk towards school and there's a bomb threat.
Wow.
That was this last week. And how do we deal with that? How do we move on and not just stand still?
Right.
How do we keep climbing?
And that's why our artists are so important. Before we hear your poetry, can you tell people if they want to see your readings live, or if they want more information, or read your poetry, how they can do that?
Certainly. Thank you so much for inviting me, first of all.
Thank you.
So, New York Quarterly Books has my first book, Definitions Uprising. I also have published with Urban Press, and I tend to read wherever Other Rooms Press is reading. This May 1st, for example, I'll be reading with them at a park called TBD.
And Other Rooms Press is the name of the poetry organization, the publishers. I've seen them. They're wonderful. You can Google them online. I think it's otherroomspress.org, and you can see the list of their schedules where they're going to be reading at. Really get out there and just really open yourself up to some really amazing poetry. And now, would you please share some of your poetry with us?
Definitely.
Great.
Definitely. Electromagnetic harmony, If death is but the fade to black cut, when leaking Etta a gamma ray and flashing, she enters. Muddy, an X-ray, he's wailing on plaid harmonica, become one funk with the eternal jam, or one unsolved fog unroll machine, orbiting here like two high-energy particles drawn from one face of unknown galaxy. Insert mannish chorus. To its mirror, repeat riff, a guttural fuel supernovas or notches, singing in a milky haze. Ah, molten center, hold, a menagerie, a gallery of bluesmen, beware, and women sketched above staged lighting. Beyond this, the sliding sun, she open, roll, thunder, quantum, shake, down, scratchy, blonde rings, black hole, tendrils hum, then affix, she opens, lashes, sucking and undulating her voice, vinyl, she ham and blindly hook his polytheistic crotch. She detonate now, release yellow velvet, boom, Etta sings, baby, baby, I'd rather be blind. He quake, sound, unfound, stage hands, take down, upper left, ballasts his head, squirming his thin mustache, strapped and caressing, maroon this gold, his ring gone, an electric guitar, he begin thrumming, insert female backups in blue light, both weapons in hand, he affix Darjeeling eyes in she with rosa lips, and he diffuse this, she heavenly expulsion in heat, muddy sings, stand by, but I'm a man, lights down.